I'm trying to open up a conversation where we can talk together, listen together, cry together, fight together. We have to engage somewhere. Hello and welcome to HLI Ireland's Let's Talk. This is the weekly show that looks at all things life, faith and family through a Catholic lens. I am your host, Lisa O'Hare, and I say it every week that I feel very privileged that you have taken the time out of your day to spend with us. I'm so grateful to you for that. And what a very special day it is today. This is Good Friday. This is a new theme. We're beginning a new theme on same-sex relationships and identity issues, and we're going to begin it with good news. The good news is that Jesus Christ has claimed victory over sin, over all sin. He has defeated death itself. There's no situation that's outside of his power and his redeeming love. And I think this month gives us a real opportunity to celebrate that and delve right into that. So I want to, we usually begin each month, each new theme with a testimony. So I'm here today to speak into this issue with confidence and joy in my heart, because my connection with this issue is deeply personal, and I feel that I can speak into it with conviction and love. So I want to start off by just breaking through the them and us barrier. If you're watching this month, we're not going to be sitting here talking about a group of people or talking at a particular group of people. It's all about us. We are all in this together. We are all children of God. And this issue of same-sex relationships, confusion and identity issues are cutting to the heart of almost every family in Ireland. I spoke with sisters from Home of the Mother recently, and they said that almost every family they're dealing with has either a family member or an indirect extended family member or friend who is same-sex attracted or struggling with sexual identity. So we need to get over that myth that same-sex attraction doesn't happen to people of faith, because it can, and it does. We need to be honest about that right from the outset. And this is what this show is all about. We want to encourage conversations within families, and we want these issues not to be allowed to dwell in the darkness and isolation. We want to bring them into the light. So, taking a deep breath, because I kind of rattle at that at 100 miles an hour, because obviously the stakes are high. The stakes are high with this topic. This is a topic that could get us cancelled off YouTube. This is a topic that I could lose so many friends. This is a topic that I know you find difficult to deal with as well. So I want to, walk this road with you. I want to step out in faith, just like I'm encouraging you to step out in faith and courage and confidence in this area, because at the root of it is love. It is God's plan for love in our lives. And I think we need to remember that. His beautiful vision for us, his created children, the design that he had for our bodies, the design of sexual union between husband and wife and the fruitfulness of that union. This is all good news. This is something we want to share. And we want to recognise, though, in that, the hardships and the confusion that comes along with, I don't want to say just ideal, but it is an ideal. But I want to say, that this vision is being constantly undermined and attacked by the world. And the casualties are just ordinary people like you and me. We can talk about ideologies. We can talk about flags, we can talk about parades, we can talk about people aggressively pushing an agenda, but at the heart of this, there are just ordinary people trying to find love in their lives and in an increasingly hyper-sexualized culture, a culture which doesn't understand God's plan, doesn't even understand God. I mean, when I began thinking over this testimony episode, I really wanted to look at, what does the word testimony mean? And it really means giving a witness to or evidence of something or someone or an action. And I want to really just give evidence of God's love and his faithfulness and his power and his forgiveness and his mercy in my life, because that's what my lips want to declare. They want to declare his power in this whole area, and in this area that can be so confused and so dark and so troubling, that he can shine a light of truth right into it, and to give you the encouragement and the confidence to walk this road and think this road. Now, you'll have to excuse me if I am maybe not quite as articulate as normal, because this is a tricky one. And in this world, everyone is afraid to put a foot wrong. So by me putting myself out there, I'm giving you permission to make a fluff of it. We have to have these conversations. And I hope that you can tell at the heart of what we're trying to do here at HLI Ireland is to share the good news of the gospel, to share God's love and his truth, but in a tone of mercy. And if I can make a fumbling attempt at this, then you can too. And we can't be afraid to have these conversations, because they are founded on truth. They're founded on him, and we can stand with conviction there, even if we make a hash of it ourselves. So thinking of that idea of testimony, and I was thinking of, well, what can I share with you or with anyone that makes an impact on their lives? Because at the end of the day, my story is my story, your story is your own, and the one story we need to be focusing on is his story. That's why Good Friday, I think, is the perfect day. It's like his action in our lives, his grace is what we need to be focusing on. And I think part of the problem is we're all so inward looking, we're not looking up. And so when I was thinking of this sharing or testimony, I was thinking, for people who are experiencing or who are in same-sex relationships, I'm quite happy about it. What can I say here? What do you want to hear? What do you need to hear? Do you want to hear, or has someone forced you to watch this video? I don't know. For someone who is struggling with same-sex attraction, an unwanted same-sex attraction, what can I say to you that will give you encouragement and confidence and hope? For someone who is unhappy with the body that you're born into, what do you need to hear? For parents, who have children who are in same-sex relationships or who are confused, what do you need to hear? How can we support and encourage you? And I've thought about testimony, and I've thought about words, and, I'm increasingly thinking maybe it's beyond words, because at this stage in our evolution, or in our culture, evolution's the wrong word, in our culture at the minute, there's so much confusion, even about the very meaning of words. And some words are real triggers for people to be offended, or they're triggers for misinterpretation. And that's why we're all so afraid to tackle this topic. And so it really got me thinking of, okay, maybe we're beyond words. And thinking through that, bear with me, keep with me here. What came to me today was the Holy Face. That we at HLI Ireland are promoting the Holy Face of our Lord, that image, and it's in billboards, on bus stops, and on the rotating boards in shopping centres and high streets all over the country, and it's that Holy Face of Jesus. And just made me think, maybe that image is enough to penetrate this situation. Maybe that image of Jesus is where we need to start. That idea that he died for us while we were still sinners. That idea that he came into a broken world. He was surrounded by broken people who deserted him, who betrayed him, and who tortured him, who murdered him. And yet he forgave them from the cross. He gave everything in love so that we would have eternal life with him, so that we could see him face to face in eternity. And maybe that can penetrate this situation. I don't know, because the idea of sin and love and darkness and light is also confusion for people. The language has got confused. And then I was thinking about Sister Claire Crockett, because she had her huge conversion moment on Good Friday. And it wasn't because of testimonies, and it wasn't because of teaching, because she was on retreat. It was an outpouring of grace that she received when she kissed the cross, when she saw Jesus as he truly is, and when she reflected and saw herself for who she truly was. And there was just an automatic outpouring of, I imagine, like grief and joy, because there's a grief there when we look at ourselves and look at our capacity for sin and our capacity for poor decisions and our capacity for confusion and our capacity for brokenness. But then at the same time, we're seeing ourselves as beloved daughters, sons and daughters of God the Most High, someone who is so deeply loved by name that Jesus died on the cross to take on our sin. So, I mean, I don't want this to be just what's the word? I don't want this to be just high level talk, because I know that people are dealing with the reality of a confusion of feelings, the reality of relationships that are not straightforward, and how we deal with this is what we want to try and tackle this month. I have a few insights if you're happy for me to share. One of the first things that I think we need to do is bring this situation into the light. There's a lot made of coming out these days, and I think we need to reclaim the language. I think we need to invite people to come into the light. It's so important that this area is not left in isolation and darkness. So, I think it is really important to share with your family and your friends closest to you if you're struggling. But I think it's more important to share than to declare and to put a label on yourself. Father Mike Smith did a really good talk on this recently when he encouraged people not to confuse relief with peace. So obviously there's a relief if you can unburden something or share something very deeply personal with a family member or a friend, but that alone will not bring peace. Again, I can speak from experience that the peace that you are seeking in any kind of confusion, in any pathway that you are not living according to the design of God in your life, that peace can only come from Him and from reorientating yourself to His plan for love in your life. And He promises you a peace that the world cannot give. The world is full of empty promises. I feel really sorry for young people at the minute that are being promised with bells and whistles all sorts of freedoms and all sorts of joy and all sorts of experiences that are lies. He alone can bring you that peace. And that's one thing that I would like to say to people who, not to ignore that feeling deep within you that is disturbed, because we can never be at peace when we're not living God's plan for our lives. And this is across the board. We don't want to single out people. We said that before. Living contrary to God's plan can be within your marriage, can be contraception, can be all sorts. But that will not, you will have a disturbance in your soul if you're tuned in. It's like what Father Luke Damasi said last week, or in the episodes a couple of weeks ago, that there's so much distraction and noise that we're not tuned in to why we are feeling the way we're feeling. The devil wants to keep us moving. Don't look, don't think, just keep going, keep moving. Don't face the reality of your situation. Don't face the reality of where you're going. And that's another key thing. I think in love, in absolute love for our family and friends, we have got to get real. we have got to live in reality. We have got to see ourselves and see where we're going, and we have to look at that with an eternal lens, because this is a passing life. And it sounds, I know young people find this really difficult to appreciate, but it's we need to be aware of our eternal destination. And the further and further we turn from God, the more difficult it is to get back. This whole area of same-sex attraction and identity, it's based on a truth of who we are and how we were designed. And the deposit of faith that we've been given, Jesus came, he suffered and died for us, and he left us the truth in his scripture, and in faith in scripture and in tradition. And that is unchanging. We have to understand that what he has given us, we can trust. And we can trust his plan for a complete fulfillment in our lives. I was always struck in this area by the parable of the rich young man. Jesus asked him to give up everything and follow him, and he couldn't. He turned away and he walked away, and it says he walked away sadly, and I often wondered what happened to him. But it struck me that Jesus didn't run after him. He didn't offer to water down what he was asking. And I think this really speaks into this whole LGBT area, this confusion, is that Jesus is inviting every one of us, all of us, to give up everything and follow him. And that can be huge for us. That is huge. And for people that are involved in same-sex relationships, it's an incredibly big ask, because there are people that you love at the centre of this. And the Lord is inviting and asking you to walk away from sexual expression of a friendship. And that can be so, so tough. And again, this is why we're talking about this on Good Friday, because we have to pick up our cross. We have to recognise the reality of what we're doing and where we are and what God's inviting us to do. And, it's unmistakable. What the church teaches in this area is just, it's unmistakable. There's no ambiguity. Much to the annoyance of the world. This is what the world wants us to constantly change. But the church is very clear that the beautiful act, the sexual act, is between man and woman in unity, and for the fruitfulness and for, to beget new life. That is the purpose of our sexuality in terms of the expression, the physical expression of it. And anything outside of that, for anyone, is outside of his plan, is a grave sin. And it's grave. We've got to understand that. We've got to understand the reality of what we're dealing with. It's grave because, well, I'm not the theologian, but again, we're turning our back on what God's planned for our life. And when we turn our back, we are not, we cannot have peace. We cannot have joy. We cannot have a future, a fruitfulness. And again, as I said, going back to that what he's asking, we have to be so conscious that for people who are already in these relationships, it's a big ask. And we've got to be so patient, and we've got to pray. But we can do that with a confidence. If you're a parent of someone who is struggling in this area, there's a couple of, for want of a better word, piece of advice that I would have for you. First of all, to be confident in what the church teaches. She is our mother. She loves us. She has nothing else except our eternal salvation at her heart. Think of Our Lady, and think of the church as Jesus' bride, and as the it is our guide to get us to heaven. So you need to have we as parents need to have confidence in that for our children. And we need to make sure that the compassion and love for our children does not obscure the truth. And that we need to speak the truth with love. Because just love without truth is just reckless. it's a hard ask, because I know parents are, we're so afraid of losing our relationships. So then the scripture of give up everything to follow me applies to you too. You have to potentially put at risk your relationship with your son or daughter in order to be able to save them. That's huge. I know that. That's huge. It's the same for friendships. We have to put at risk a friendship if we're going to try and help each other. This is mutual. Our friends help us all the time. It's not a crusade where we're going out to save our friend. But when the Lord invites us to share a truth, we need to be confident in doing so. And with regard to that, with regard to parents, the biggest thing I would encourage you is not to encourage your children not to put labels on themselves. I think, especially as teenagers, I understand, that a diagnosis is important to define a problem. I'm talking from a medical perspective as a parent. When a doctor put a diagnosis on something, there was a relief to it, and you felt you could do something about it. But there's a difference between naming how you feel compared to putting a label on yourself. So by all means, we've got to encourage our children to talk to us about how they're feeling, but encourage them not to put a label on themselves. And it's so important, because language is important. We need to put our identity into Christ, because if you put a label on yourself, there is something deeply psychological that goes on there, that you have taken on an ownership of an identity that is not your identity. Your identity is a beloved daughter and son of Christ. And if that makes sense, to absorb that identity first and foremost, things become much clearer. Your future is opened up. It's like Luke McCann said in one of his earlier episodes. He gave God a chink of light, just an opening for him to work. And I would encourage you to leave that opening for yourself, for your children. Sorry, mostly we're talking for your children. Don't close the door by putting a label and having this trajectory for your life. Confusion is so understandable for teenagers particularly, but even into young adulthood. The boundaries in this hypersexualized culture, there is such a confusion over God's plan for love and in our lives. And so we just have to accept that. We have to talk through it. We have to shine the light of truth into it and the reality of who we are. I feel like I'm kind of blabbering here, and maybe that's what you need. Maybe you need somebody who's prepared to go on and, as I said, make a mess of it in order to try and say something and do something. And I'm so conscious of this, of being unaware of who's going to see this episode, because, I have friends who I deeply love who are, in same-sex relationships. And, I'm not trying to condemn anyone. I'm not trying to go into someone's life and tell them how to live it. I'm trying to open up a conversation where we can talk together, listen together, cry together, fight together. We have to engage somewhere. And if there's love at the centre of it, and a genuine authenticity at the centre of it, and a desire, love is to will the good of another. When you know that I am willing your good, that I want what's good for you, then maybe you can hear what I'm trying to say. And as I said, I wanted to speak to you as someone who has walked this road, as someone who wants to share that, yeah, we can go from darkness to light. That He is in the silence of our hearts. He is rooting for us. He is pursuing and He is calling. Never give up. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on a family member. And don't put time on these things, and don't have this anxiety of this problem has to be solved now. Our struggle with sin will go on for a lifetime, until that last breath that we take, for all of us. And we have to give Him that chance to speak into our lives. We have to have that little bit of silence for an awareness of how much He loves us, what He's calling us, what what he's calling us towards and what he's taking us away from. And I'm just going to finish by, again, reality check, opening our eyes, looking at who is inviting you, who is pursuing you, and why. On Good Friday, Jesus died for you. He is pursuing you with every ounce of his love. But also, on the other hand, Satan is the tempter. We have to call it out as it is. He is tempting. He is teasing. He is prodding. He is doing everything in his power to take you away from God. That's the reality. And he is using every device possible at the minute to take beautiful souls. To take beautiful souls and confuse what love is. To confuse how our bodies are designed for fruitfulness. He's using everything in his armory to destroy the family, to destroy marriage. And don't get me wrong, this whole issue permeates society. This is why it's so important to talk about, because it's not just, well, I get on with my life and they'll get on with theirs and we'll just leave that. This issue is permeating society. It is the destruction of marriage. It is the destruction of God's plan for a husband and wife to come together and bring forth children. Because if we have women who are not answering their call to marriage, who are being distracted, being confused, being drawn away from the complementarity to which they're called, the fruitfulness won't happen. The children that God has planned will not come into this world. You know, we are looking at life and death. We are looking at a culture of life versus a culture of death. And, you know, again, maybe the words don't do it. Maybe it is the visuals. Maybe we need to look at life, look at complementarity, look around nature, look in our bodies, look to where God joins male, female, and he brings forth life. And how, of course, not every sexual union brings life. We know that. But there's an openness to life. And this will permeate into our topics on contraception and pornography and all sorts of other ways that there's an attack on marriage and family. As I said before, let's not think that this is just one single topic that we're homing in on for extra attention. But this whole area is at the centre of the battle for marriage and family. Because if marriage is not between one man and one woman for the begetting of children, for union, for love and for fruitfulness, if it is destroyed as that particularly special, beautiful union that we must fight to treasure, the actual survival of the species depends on it. That is so important. And then you have the family of children being raised by their parents. And, open your eyes. Open your eyes to the brokenness. I hate having to call it or having to point at brokenness or having anyone think that their lives are any, less valuable or, listen, we are broken. But we do have some responsibility for the brokenness that we are inviting into our society. We do. We have to stand up and get real. And that's what I want to share with you. Like, that is my testimony in the sense of that's what I want to share with you is a conviction and a love into a situation. I want to declare his power. He has power. Let's tap into it. This is Good Friday. Tap into that love that poured out literally from his body for us, and have a confidence and an encouragement that he can make all situations, he can bring all situations to the good. It's Romans. He brings all situations to the good for those who love him. No situation is beyond his redemption. So no matter where you are right now, and no matter if what we talk about in the next month pains you, angers you, frustrates you, disheartens you, please just open your heart to that conversation. Open your heart to what it is that he wants for you in your life. He promises you a peace that the world cannot give. So that's it, folks. thank you for joining us. I hope that you are showered with blessings this Easter. I hope that if you're suffering today, no matter what area you're suffering in, that you know that we're praying for you. I'm praying for you. I've prayed a lot. I pray a lot for you. I pray a lot for your soul. I pray a lot that I can speak or help in any tiny way. And it's only to help you talk to the people around you, because therein is the nature of social media. I can't actually speak to you. Much as I would like to have a cup of tea with you, I can't. But I can encourage you and let you know that you're loved. You're loved by God. You don't need me. It is God the Father. He loves you. And if you unite your sufferings with him, no matter what they are, hold on tight through your Holy Saturday, no matter how long that lasts. Because I know your Holy Saturday can last for a long time till the resurrection power comes, but it will come. I promise you. He promises you. It's not about me and my story. It's about him and his story. He promises you that resurrection power. So, it's not them and us. It's all us. And I know that together we can work and pray for an Ireland where God is first, life is sacred, and the family is cherished. God bless you and have a very, very happy Easter.